It was just after 9 p.m. on May 20th, 2022, when a police officer in Orono, Minnesota, noticed a Chevrolet Impala that should not have been on the road. The car was missing an entire wheel, dragging along the pavement. The rear window was shattered. The officer activated his lights and pulled the vehicle over. As he approached with his flashlight, he could see the missing tire immediately. But then his light swept across the side panel. There was blood on the side of the car, a lot of it. He called out to his partner. On the ground nearby, there were shotgun shells scattered around the vehicle. The driver was a woman, later identified as Julissa Thaler. When asked what had happened, she explained that she had a broken windshield and was missing a tire because some kids had been shooting at her car. The officer looked inside and saw more blood. He told her it looked like blood inside the car. Julissa corrected him. She said it was not blood. She said she had a large bag of deer meat in the car from a local farm that processes deer meat and hamburgers. The officers were uncertain, but Julissa was becoming impatient. She was cold. She refused to sit in the squad car. After a short time, the officers made a decision that would haunt them. They let her go. They gave her a ride home. Then they went back to the car. They opened the trunk. Inside, they found the body of a 6-year-old boy wrapped in a blanket. Next to him was a shotgun with blood on it. That boy was Eli Hart, and this is the story of how he got there. To understand the weight of what was found in that trunk, you have to know who Eli Hart was when he was alive. Eli was 6 years old. He lived in Orono, Minnesota, with his mother, Julissa Thaler. He attended kindergarten at Shirley Hills Primary School in nearby Mound, a small community about 20 miles west of the Wisconsin border. Eli was born with a genetic disorder called Townes-Brocks syndrome. It meant he needed hearing aids. It meant he had a few minor physical differences. But to everyone who knew him, those things were just small details about a very big personality. Eli's father, Eli Hart, described his son as always happy, always outgoing, always full of energy. Eli had an infectious laugh that people remembered long after he left the room. He had a gap-toothed smile that appeared in every photograph. He loved simple things. He loved blowing bubbles and watching them float away on the wind. He loved playing with toy cars, lining them up and racing them across the floor. He loved going to the park and swinging as high as he could, pumping his legs to go higher and higher. He loved going fishing with his dad, sitting patiently with a pole in his hands. And he loved eating meatballs at a local restaurant called Carboni's, where the staff knew him by name. Eli was, by every account, a normal, joyful little boy. He was the kind of child who made friends easily on the playground. He was the kind of child who brought light into a room just by entering it. He was the kind of child who deserved a safe and happy childhood. Julissa Thaler, Eli's mother, had a history that was documented across 15 years of medical and court records. It was a history that began when she was just 13 years old. Starting at that age, she had been in and out of mental health institutions. She received diagnoses for depression, mood disorder, and borderline personality disorder. These were not casual diagnoses made after brief consultations. They were the result of repeated evaluations over many years. Throughout her life, she was treated repeatedly for drug and alcohol abuse. The treatments were not always successful. During her last year of high school, she ran away from home and lived on the streets for 45 days. She was a teenager, alone, without stable housing or support. Little is publicly known about the relationship between Julissa and Eli Hart, Eli's biological father. What is known is that Eli wanted to be in his son's life from the very beginning. From the time Julissa was pregnant, Eli attempted to establish a relationship with his child. But Julissa filed reports against him. She accused him of abuse. These accusations were investigated. Later, she would admit in a St. Paul police report that because of her mental health issues, she constantly accused Eli of things he did not do. She acknowledged that the accusations were false, but the damage was already done. These false orders of protection had a consequence that would prove devastating. They prevented Eli from seeing his son during crucial early years, and they made Eli look like the problem in the eyes of the court, rather than the father trying to protect his child from a clearly unstable situation. The first time Julissa lost custody of Eli, it was because social services received a report that could not be ignored. The report stated that Julissa was presenting with psychosis. She was hearing voices. The voices were telling her to harm herself. When social workers went to Julissa's home to check on Eli, they found a scene that confirmed their worst concerns. Eli was naked. He had nothing to wear in the house except a pair of pajamas. The house was filthy. An upstairs bathroom had flooded, water seeping through the ceiling. Broken eggs had been smeared throughout the main level of the home, covering floors and furniture. Eli was removed from his mother's care immediately. He was placed in foster care. But there was some relief in this situation. Eli was placed with family. His foster parents were Nikita and Stephen Kronberg. Nikita was Julissa's own cousin. For Eli, this meant he was with people who loved him. He was in a stable home, with routines and meals and clean clothes. He was safe for the first time in a long time. During this time, Eli Hart and his wife Josie were permitted unsupervised visits with Eli. The bond between father and son grew immediately and powerfully. Tori later said that Eli fell in love with him, and he fell in love with his son. They had years to make up for. Tori taught Eli how to fish, showing him how to cast a line and wait patiently. He taught him how to ride a bike without training wheels, running behind him as he wobbled down the sidewalk. For the first time, Eli had a consistent, loving father in his life. But Julissa was not absent during this time. Nikita Kronberg, Eli's foster mother, worked early morning shifts at her job. One morning, at 3 a.m., as she walked to her car in the dark to go to work, she noticed a car parked outside the home. It was sitting there with the engine off, watching. Inside the car was a person. As Nikita got closer, she recognized the face. It was Julissa. She was sitting there in the dark, watching the house where her son slept. When Nikita tried to confront her, to ask what she was doing, the car sped away into the night. This was reported to authorities. This was documented in case files. And still, the system moved forward. Over the next several months, while Eli remained in foster care, a steady stream of reports was filed about Julissa Thaler. These reports came from social workers, from court-appointed guardians, and from the family court system. One report noted that between March 15, 2021, and March 10, 2022, Julissa had received 7 separate traffic citations. They ranged from speeding to careless driving to using a wireless device while driving. Another report noted that she had a hearing scheduled regarding the theft of pharmaceuticals from a medical clinic. Her housing situation was deeply unstable. Between July of 2021 and early 2022, she moved multiple times, never staying in one place for long. One guardian wrote directly that there was a lack of stability in her housing over a short period, and this was concerning for a child. During October and November of 2021, Julissa did not attend any therapy sessions. She had only minimal participation in meetings with her mental health service worker. Both of her mental health providers indicated that Julissa lacked insight into her own mental health and her own behavior. She did not seem to understand or acknowledge the severity of her condition. One guardian wrote directly about the impact this was having on Eli. This guardian expressed serious concern about how Julissa's mental health was affecting her 6-year-old's mental health and well-being. The guardian also noted that Julissa was actively jeopardizing Eli's relationship with his father, who appeared to be a stabilizing force in Eli's life. The same social workers who documented these concerns also noted that Julissa had been neglecting Eli's medical needs. His hearing aids, which were necessary for his genetic disorder, were often not in working order. He would arrive at visits with dead batteries or missing devices. She frequently brought him to school late, sometimes hours after classes started. Despite all of this documentation, despite the clear pattern of instability, one social worker wrote a statement that would later prove tragically incorrect. The worker wrote that there was no current indication that Eli was physically unsafe in his mother's care. Another guardian wrote that although she had ongoing concerns about Eli's emotional and mental well-being, she did not currently have concerns about his physical well-being in either parent's care. The concerns were documented, the red flags were raised, but the conclusion, repeatedly and fatally, was that physical safety was not an issue. On May 10, 2022, after 457 days in county custody and family foster care, Eli Hart was returned to his mother. Dakota County District Judge Tim Wormager awarded custody to Julissa Thaler on a trial basis. This decision came despite every warning. It came despite the recent concerns from multiple professionals. It came despite the 7 traffic violations in 1 year. It came despite the pending theft charge for pharmaceuticals. It came despite the fact that Julissa had stopped attending any form of therapy. It came despite the fact that she had been caught watching the foster home in the middle of the night like a stalker. Under Minnesota state law, for Tori's custody case to move forward, the protection cases had to be closed. So, they were closed. Eli's foster parents, Nikita and Stephen, who had cared for him for over a year, who had provided him with love and stability and routine, had to say goodbye to the little boy they had come to love as their own. They packed his things. They handed him back to his mother. In the days that followed, Eli's school sent an email to the authorities. Teachers expressed large concerns about Julissa's behavior. They specifically flagged Julissa's speed and reckless driving in the school parking lot, endangering other children. This was reported to the caseworkers. A social worker assigned to the case sent a text message to a colleague during this period. The text read, "I can't imagine what she's putting that child through right now." But because there was no sign of physical abuse, because no one had seen a bruise or a broken bone, the case was closed. Eli was officially back in his mother's custody full-time. In the weeks before Eli was returned to her, Julissa Thaler had been making preparations that no loving mother would ever consider. A friend of Julissa's later spoke to detectives during the investigation. The friend said that Julissa had expressed a specific interest in learning how to use a shotgun. In mid-March of 2022, approximately 2 months before Eli's death, Julissa purchased a shotgun from a licensed dealer. Over 2 days, she and her friend visited a gun range so she could learn how to use the weapon effectively. She practiced firing at targets. On the electronic devices belonging to Julissa Thaler, investigators later found a series of internet searches that painted a chilling picture of what was going through her mind. These searches were conducted in the days before and immediately after Eli was returned to her custody. She searched for how to keep a child away from the other parent with visitation. She searched for how to fake an insurance claim for car damage. She searched for how much blood can a 6-year-old lose. She searched for does a doctor's note prevent a child from parent visitation. She searched for most powerful knockout drug. She searched for how much whiskey to give a baby. She searched for most expensive life insurance for a child. She searched for how much does life insurance pay for a dead child. She searched for how to fake being home to the cops. She searched for how to keep a child from school for a month. She searched for child life insurance policy qualifying accidental deaths. She searched for does life insurance cover drowning? She searched for how to commit a crime and blame the child. She searched for what length is allowed to saw off a shotgun barrel. These searches were not the actions of a mother preparing to care for her son. On May 19, 2022, 9 days after Eli was returned to his mother's custody, Julissa Thaler picked up her son from school. With her was her boyfriend at the time, Robert Pikarainen. They went back to Julissa's apartment in Orono for the evening. Robert later testified in court about what happened that night. He said they fed Eli pizza for dinner. They played with kittens that were in the apartment. They were getting ready to play Xbox together. It seemed like a normal evening for a while, but it was getting late. Around 11 p.m., which was very late for a 6-year-old on a school night, Eli became rowdy and full of energy. According to Robert's testimony, Julissa did not like this behavior. She began hitting Eli. Eli, reacting as any child might when being struck, began hitting her back. They were physically fighting in the apartment. Robert said that Julissa then took the shotgun she had purchased and put it in her car. She came back upstairs. Robert went to lie down on the bed to sleep. Julissa grabbed Eli and took him downstairs. Robert fell asleep. The next morning, Robert woke up between 8 and 8:30. He asked Julissa where she had gone during the night. Her response was vague and evasive. She said she had to go do something. Robert assumed Eli was at school. Later that day, Julissa mentioned something about the police being involved. Robert asked what she was talking about. She did not explain. What Robert did not know was that while he slept, Julissa Thaler had driven her son somewhere. While 6-year-old Eli Hart was still strapped into his booster seat in the back of the car, his mother shot him with the shotgun. On May 20th, the day after Eli was killed, Julissa Thaler was still driving the Chevrolet Impala with her son's body in the trunk. The car now had a shattered rear window from the shotgun blast. There was a bullet hole in the back seat near where the window had been blown out. The car was missing a tire, dragging along the road and leaving marks. At some point that day, Julissa stopped at a gas station. She removed items from her car. Among these items were Eli's backpack and some of his schoolwork. She threw them into a dumpster behind the gas station. She was disposing of her son's belongings like trash. That evening, the traffic stop occurred, and the officers made the decision to let her go. Then they found Eli's body. Julissa was arrested a short time later. At her trial, the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before finding her guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But Eli's family wanted more than a conviction. A local news investigation obtained hundreds of never-before-seen CPS emails and texts. Their investigation revealed not a few failures, but a multitude of failures at every level. During the 11 months Eli lived with foster parents, records showed Julissa missed drug tests, tampered with drug tests, was arrested for stealing needles and medication, stopped going to therapy, and was so disruptive she was kicked out of drug testing programs. When Eli would return from visits with his mother, his hair would be matted and greasy. His clothes would stink. He was not being bathed or cared for. On the very first day Eli went back to his mother, the school sent an email warning about her reckless driving. Over the next 5 months, caseworkers took Julissa off drug testing requirements. They did not confirm she was attending required counseling. When a teacher reported that Eli said his mother hit him, they did not investigate. 10 days later, Eli was dead.